All right, so I'm going to GitHub do at least part of the Hacker News one. I'm probably just going to do maybe just the nav bar because, again, it is time consuming. And I want to take up all night just doing the Hacker News, the entire Hacker News challenge. I do want to get to some additional material. Where are we at? So recreate Hacker News. So the first thing I'm going to do is fork this over to my personal GitHub. And then I'm going to clone it down. And then we'll kind of talk about strategy of how we want to go about implementing this. All right. So I'm on Charlie challenges. Let me zoom in a little bit. Is that good, or should I zoom in one more?
That's fine.
All right, cool. All right, so I'm going to CD, or no, I'm just going to get clone, Hacker News, CD in a Hacker News, and open this up into a new VS Code window, and go ahead and just kind of read about, just kind of look at what I'm dealing with. All right. Come on, Hacker News, load. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of inspect just to get an idea of how they did it. But I'm going to do something completely different because I know they use a bunch of tables, like table body. I don't even know what TD is. Table. Does anybody know off the top of their head?
Yeah.
What is it?
Table data.
Table data. All right, so I'm just kind of looking at how it's kind of structured. I'm just going to do it, I guess, my way. But just like before you jump into coding a algorithm, it's good to pseudocode first. So has anybody heard of wireframing or boxing before? Yes, no.
Yeah,
Yes.
like kind of like sketching out, sort of.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It's literally just sketching out the page of how you want it. Specifically, it's not just like sketching it like Hacker News and like new past. You are literally drawing it's called boxing or wireframing because you're literally drawing a box that represents a HTML element on the screen. You don't include words on it. You don't include like specifically information. All you do is show where the HTML elements go on the page. And you can label the HTML elements as well, as whether it's like a div or a link, but high level, you don't even need to do that. You just want to box everything out. So you can use literally a pen and paper or pencil and paper. You can use some other collaboration software. There's literally, what is it? Balsamic.
Figma's good.
Figma. Balsamic is like another, literally just wireframing. And if you type in like wireframing example, you can kind of see what a wireframe is. It doesn't have to be as detailed as these because these are more likely than they're professional wireframes. But it's pretty much something like this or like that. But like there's Balsamic, there's a wireframing application, but you really only need a piece of paper or some collaboration. Google Sheets is good because it's already kind of formatted like what a web page would be, and you can literally just draw boxes. But I'm going to do just the nav bar to try to get the nav bar looking similar to what this is. So if I were to wireframe or box, I'll actually just call it wireframing, the nav bar, you want to box things in or put things into divs that are together. So for example, like these links are separate than this login link. So maybe there should be an entire box or a div around this entire element or this cluster of elements, and have like the login be a totally separate part of the page. Same with the nav bar. Like the nav bar should be its own box, followed by a box within here, and then maybe each one of these are their own element. We can discuss that, but maybe, yeah, we can just see how that works. Same thing with like this part. These might be like literally like 3 different boxes, but it'll be surrounded by one big box. So if I were to just do the nav bar, I'm just gonna, what the hell is that? That's not what I want. All right, so let's see what I want. Is someone not muted? All right. So let's see what I want. Here we go. I just want boxes. So this is Limnu. It's like a little easy collaboration software. It's free. So if you want to work on this with multiple people, Limnu is good. So if I were to do the nav bar, like, all right, here's the entire nav bar representing everything within the orange. Now I'll need to create the actually nav buttons. I'll need to create that title, this logo. So I'm just going to create another box which represents a div that encapsulates all those links. So I'll have like the logo, the title, and then how many links are there? There's 7 links. So 1, it doesn't have to look pretty at all. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, and you can like label it too if you want, like this is the logo, this is the title, and these are the links. And you can write in there what they are. Then over on the right hand side is the login button. And you can also like label specifically, all right, this is a nav, like a nav link or a nav element. This bigger box is just going to be a div. I'll just say like, hey, that's a div. This is an image. This is like an H1 maybe. And these are all like A tags. Maybe you can change this, but this is just like an initial. Just like architecture of what it will be. So there's all A tags. And then we've got, or they can be buttons, but right now I'm just going to say they're links. Does anybody have any questions of like wireframing on how this kind of works? And if you did it differently, that's totally okay. I might even change it up. I might just make all these like just divs or something and just style it to make it look like it.
I think anchors are good for accessibility because you can tab them. So that'll probably be the way to do it.
That makes sense. Definitely. And then to make it all left aligned and right aligned, that's where the CSS comes in. So with that, let's go ahead and actually get to work. So the first thing I'm going to do is create an HTML file. What the hell is going on? Whoop. There we go. list everything out. So I'm going to touch an index.html file. I'm going to code index.html. All right. So with that, how do I get the boilerplate of an HTML file quickly?
Exclamation point.
I can do an exclamation point. Whoop. Uh-oh, there we go. So I've got, that's one way to do it. If you have different plugins, if I just type in HTML, I can, all right, there's another way, but if I do HTML, here's another way that looks very similar to that .bang. If I do HTML, this is another way. This has a little more additional resources that we might see going forward. So I'm just going to use this. And all right. And we'll talk about what this stuff is later. But let's just get something on the screen first. Hacker news. And I'm going to open this up. There we go. We've got hacker news up here. So if I'm going to be using, where'd that wireframing thing go? Limnu. So I'm going to create a nav and then have a div and then have a bunch of image, H1, A tags. I mean, these could all be paragraph tags. Again, they can be something different and I can style them to make them look how I want them to look. But right now I'm just going to kind of keep this like so. All right. Oh, what's going on? Why is that loading? So the first thing I'm going to do is create a nav. They do have a nav element that just makes sure that that says like to the browser that what's inside of here is a nav. In reality, there really isn't a difference between the nav and just a basic div. It's just tells the browser and different users or the other developers that, hey, this is a nav, part of the navigation. All right, so if this is the nav, so that's that part, that's that big thing box. Now in here, there's gonna be two other boxes within the nav. There's this div and then there's this A tag. So I'm gonna create another div and an A tag. Href, I'm not going to have it go anywhere initially. And I'm not worried about class names or IDs or anything like that. I'm just going to say login right there. And if I come over here, we've got this login, but now I'm going to have to create an image, H1 and a bunch 7 A tags, I think it is. So I forgot what the image looks like or what do I need for the image. So I'm just going to Google that real quick. Image, HTML tag. All right. Should use W3 schools. So I've got something that looks like this. Should I copy that over and get rid of some of, so I don't need this width height. Now for the image, let's look at Hacker News. It's got this logo, but it looks like that's also a link, but we won't worry about that right now. So what I'm going to do is look for that image, that logo. Come on, why isn't it opening? Oh, geez. All right. So I'm just going to hover over this logo. So right here, it looks like, can I even like copy this? Copy link address. So I'm trying to steal this logo or acquire it. Let's see if it works. So that's pretty small. I guess I'll just use this. So downloads. And I'm just gonna drag that in here. Downloads. What was it, Y18 or something? Where'd that go? Oh, there it is. All right, so I've got that logo. And it just, is it Y18 GIF? I just want to see if this actually works. So if I come over here to our, so there's our logo. Next, I'm going to create a bunch of A tags, news. Oh, wait, hold on a second. Let's see. So there's Hacker News. So this Hacker News is also a link. So I'm not going to actually make that an H1 tag. I'm going to just make them all A tags, and then I'll just target this first child, or I guess it would be the second child, and edit it. So Hacker News. So there's technically 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 A tags. News. Let's go ahead and actually, well, I guess I don't need to do that now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I think it goes like news, posts, or is it past or past? I think it's post, right? Oh no, past. All right. Just look at news, past, comments. Ask, show, jobs, submit, comment. All right, so if I come over here, check it out. So it's kind of looking a little bit better. Hacker News, news, past, comments, ask. And then there's also these pipes in between them. So I'm just gonna manually add those pipes. Like so. All right, that's starting to look a little bit better. All right. What else do we need? So now I think we can actually start styling it to make it look similar to this. Does anybody have any questions or comments right now about anything?
Really quickly, your developer tools, how did you get it to slide to the right?
When you Command Option I. Some people like it coming from the bottom. I like it on the side just because I have a wider monitor. Is that what you're asking, like how to open up the developer tools?
No, just position it off to the right hand
Oh.
side.
I think, does anybody know? So you can do it down here. So in the little 3 dots, you can, that side, right or left side, bottom,
Awesome, thank you.
or to the right side. All right. So Any other questions? All right. So let's actually start adding some classes and IDs to these. So we can actually start styling it with some CSS. So Navbar, I'm just going to make it a class and just literally call it like Navbar. For this part, div, I'm just going to call this a class. More often than not, things are classes over IDs. I'm just going to call it nav link group because it's a group of nav links. For the image, I'll actually do an ID of the hell of logo. So because this image is the logo. For all these A tags, I'm going to call it just like nav link class equals nav links or nav link because that's what this is. For this hacker news, I might call this something different. I can either target it via CSS or I can give this specific one an ID to target it even more, but that's a decision I'll make when I'm utilizing CSS. I'll also make this a nav link as well, this login. All right. Let's see if I need to, I think that's okay for right now. Any questions about classes or IDs? Nope. All right. So next, I'm going to actually do some CSS. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a CSS file or so styles.css. There's my CSS file. I'm going to split the screen. Now, how do I go about inserting my CSS file into my HTML file?
Link tag.
So we've got this link tag, and this is the location of where I'm loading the CSS file from relative to essentially where's the CSS file in relation to the index.html file. They're on the same level, so I don't need to give a relative path to it or an absolute path to it. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to target the body, the entire body. So you'll see this a lot in CSS is that the body targets everything within there. And maybe you want specific fonts. So a lot of times you just want like a specific font throughout your entire web page, and you do that inside the body. So I can do font family, and you can see all the different font families. Which one I'll do? I like Verdana. So how this works is if the web browser can't display the Verdana font, it'll then go down to the Geneva font. If it doesn't have the Geneva font, it'll go down to the Tahoma font. And if it doesn't have that, it just has the default sans serif font. Questions on font family? All right. So I can refresh that. I'm going to zoom in. All right. So we're starting to look something kind of like it. What do we have? Oh, the background. The background should be a different color. So Macs have a digital color meter that I hover over so I can see specific what colors are specific things. So this is an RGB of 254 5, 91, and 0. So I can 255, 91, and 0. Just got to memorize that. So with the nav bar, I can target the nav bar specifically. So dot nav bar. I'm just going to do background color, RGB value of 255, 91, and 0. All right. Get rid of that. Questions on?
Did that font family work without a semicolon?
Does the font family work without the like right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it will, because it's the only one in here, but you are correct. I should add a semicolon to that end of that. So if I look over here, if I refresh that, starting to look somewhat like it, kind of. Let's see. Except it is pretty, it doesn't go the length of the entire page. It looks like it has some padding or margin. You can kind of see what it is. So it looks like, so let's actually just do, since we're just doing the nav bar, I'll actually do the body. So I'll do max. So you can either do width equals a percentage or a pixel. You can also do a max width or a min width of how small you want it. But I'll do a max width of 85% of the entire page. So that's kind of looks like it. I can also do that with just the nav bar, because we're just doing the nav bar, and that should also do it as well. Text align center. Let's see if that works. Okay, that's not what I want. So a lot of this is trial and error. I could also do like margin left 10% just to get it looking like somewhat centered, even though it's totally not centered. All right, so we're starting to get there. It looks like the logo has a white border around it. So let's go ahead and do that. So I can target the logo. Also, let's see.
You can try on the nav bar, margin 0 auto.
So if I do margin 0 auto, so left and right auto, and then get rid of that 10%.
Yep.
There we go. Very nice. Also, just for best practices, as for like cleanliness and good code design, depending on where you go, they may or may not make a big deal about it, but these typically should be in alphabetical order. So max based off of the first letter. So M comes after B. So B should come first, likewise with margin. So you can put them in order, or you can create a hotkey that automatically puts them in alphabetical order for you. So that's kind of nice there. All right. So we also need to target this logo. So I'm going to do ID as a logo. Border, what was it? Border, 1 pixel, solid white. Let's see if that works. Okay, it's starting to look kind of like it. I might need to add some margin to that. But I want this login to be all the way over here. Now there's several ways you can do that. I'm going to go with what is called Flexbox. If you don't know what Flexbox is, it's okay. We're going to go over it today. So how that will work is I'm going to Actually, does anybody, so if you don't know, you can either do Flexbox or Grid, Box, CSS. There's a great website called CSS Tricks that if you want to know how certain items work, it gives a lot of visuals, which are awesome of how this works. So with this, the container, your container div, you want to put display flex. And then in your container, you can do flex direction. These are optional of how this works. So right to left to right, up to down to up. Flex wrap. Where's the one on flex flow? Justify content. This is kind of what I am looking for. So based on these directions, my container should have this display flex on it. So the containing div is this nav bar. So I can say display flex, and then also this justify content of how I want my child elements to look. So the parent is the purple, the orange are my child elements. So if I look over here inside of Navbar, my child elements are this div and this A tag. And if I want them totally spread apart, I'll actually want to use space between because I want them totally spread apart. So I can say justify content space between. Now, if I come back over here, if I refresh that, now I get it's kind of set up to how this looks. Questions on that? On Flexbox. What else do we need? So the hacker news should be bold. So there's one way I can do. I can either create an ID or target .navbar first child. I can say like font size 36. Font weight is like how dark do you want or how thick, like bold. So I can either say bold or 900. So I can look at that. All right, so that didn't work. So the first child of navlink group. So it'd be navlink group, not navbar. Group first child, which would target the hacker news. Why isn't it still doing that? Oh, it's because it's targeting that. So it'd be second child. Is that even a thing? So it'd be nth. See, this is where it's like, all right, nth child. Is it the second child? Still not working. Does anybody know? So you can say like target second child CSS. Nth child. Let's see. P.nth child.
Instead of putting a class, you could put like a generic selector, like a div.
Yep. I'm probably just gonna do an ID of title. Just keep it simple. So instead of adding all this stuff, my computer's dying. I can do hashtag title. And hopefully that will fix it. There we go. All right. But now it looks like I need some margin because this isn't centered. This isn't centered. Does anybody know how I can go about doing that? If I wanted to. Let's see. So, well, first let's go with, I'm trying to think off link group. I can say like margin. I don't know. Just trying to think of
Margin auto, maybe.
You're trying to vertical align?
it's vertical. Well, the margin should be all the way around. I guess use the logo. So nav link group, margin top, say like 2 pixels. Let's just do 2 pixels all the way around, see what happens. So see how that's kind of, it's not directly centered. We want nav link group.
Margin auto 0.
Margin auto. It's a little bit better. So like this part isn't in the center of that. What if I went,
Text align center.
what's that?
Text align center.
Text align center. Still not. And like,
There's a vertical align, isn't there?
Yeah, take that margin out and text align center would probably fix you up in vertical align.
I'll tell you right now, vertical aligning items are very difficult. There's
I
like,
think in Flex, sorry.
go ahead.
I think in Flexbox, you can use align items.
Align
center
items.
instead of vertical align. If the parent's a Flexbox.
Let's see if that works.
But I think that would be in the, yeah.
Yeah. And the parent. Still nothing. And like, this is where like we can get into the nitty gritty of it. I'm just gonna do margin, top, bottom, auto, like 5 pixels. Why didn't that work?
I think for align items to work, you need to have display set to flex in the parent.
It's here.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah. Why isn't margin work? Oh, maybe padding. Whoop. Padding. I'll just say like 5 pixels. That's too much. But this is where. All right. Let's see. Now, if I like, all right, well, if I move the image outside of that, so now that looks nice. Like it's centered, but now look at it. This is centered, which I don't want. I want it over here. So
Take the image out of that div and put it by itself, maybe.
yeah, I took that image out right there. Now maybe we can't use flex, or I don't want to use flex. So what I can do is use grid instead. So let's look at grid, CSS tricks. Come on. Again, CSS tricks is amazing. So complete guide to grid. Now grid, it takes a little more writing of CSS, but you can specifically control where everything goes on the screen because it's all grid and you can tell which grid to go into. So the container, we use grid. And then, for example, grid template columns. Let's see, where is it? So for example, here's a grid template columns. The first column, you're explicitly saying it's 40 pixels. The second column, you're saying 50 pixels right there. You're doing auto for the center and then 50 and 50. So if I wanted to, instead of using grid, let's actually get rid of this align items, grid, and then we're going to do grid template, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, grid template columns. I'm going to do like 30 pixels, auto, 50 pixels. So the first column is going to be 30 pixels, which is going to be the logo. So the logo is going to be, so there's 3 columns now. So this is going to take up 50 pixels. This part's going to be auto. And then this part's going to take up 50 pixels, or I guess 30 pixels for the image. So if I come over here, all right, that's the same. Display grid. So
Because you still have the margin 0 auto in there.
oh, yeah. Let's just comment that out. All right, now does it justify content maybe? There we go. Cool. And instead of just going to your CSS file and keep updating everything and then refreshing. Oh. Font, weight, size. You could also do everything within your Chrome DevTools by changing all the CSS in there as well.
There's an extension in VS Code where you can view the web page and in the side pane, but I could never get it to work today.
Yeah, I don't think I've used that much. I know it's possible. I've never used it though.
It had like 2 million users, so it's pretty popular, but I could never
Alright.
get any of the shortcuts to work to open it.
I just got it spun up today. The
Run
issue
live
is-
server.
Yeah, you have to
I
set the
don't
default
remember what it's
browser
called. Let me look.
to Firefox, and then it'll do it. It's set up as Edge automatically, and if you don't have Edge, it's not going to spin up the live server.
It runs in Chrome as well.
Okay, that's what I was trying to make it run in, but I couldn't get it. I'll get with you later and see if you can
Sure.
walk me through it.
I use it a lot because you can, as you update, it automatically updates what you've changed.
Thanks. All right. So it's starting to look like it, except for the Hacker News, like all these links, they're actual links. So they have the default link styling to it, but I don't want that. I just kind of want it to look like so. So I can target all the A tags. A tag. If I don't want the default styling, I can do text, decoration, and none. So the links don't have any decoration to them. So, all right. So the underline is gone, but the color is still that blue. So I can say color black. There, it's starting to look a little bit better. All right, that looks pretty good. If I went back to the default, the size is a little bit off, but doesn't look too bad. So that's pretty close. Any questions on getting this nav bar to kind of look the way it does? You may have done it a little bit differently. That's totally okay. Again, a lot of it's trial and error. Does anyone have any questions?